Weird camera angle. You know why? I did so good. So good. Barely had any Anti-Sieze on me. If you think it's just the traffic finger, nope. What happened? What went terribly wrong? I was literally cleaning up, and that's when I got it all over me. So, you do what you can, you know, but you ultimately wind up covered in the stuff anyway. Welcome back to the Ram Revival. Got a nice Saturday here in the shop. We are nearing the point of installing this thing. And something that we've had in place for quite some time is the headers. Now, spoiler alert, despite them being there, they are not actually installed. What I mean by that, they're just loosely mocked up, basically sat into place to see how they cleared the engine mounts, things along those lines. I can spin it out by hand. We've got the stainless bolts I bought aftermarket. Those are not alloy bolts. Those are my usual supplier. This is what Gibson sent right here. We've had them in place, again, just to kind of test clearances. Before I come in, and finish out, this air and fuel and spark, if you will, I kind of want to come in and get these torqued. So, it's sort of a crapshoot. I don't know that they're going to clear. It's one of two things is going to happen. It's best to install the headers on the stand out of the truck and then put it in the truck. Or it's best to install the block minus the headers, put it in the truck, then install the headers. I'm going to go this route because I can't do it vice versa. If I have to lift it back up on the gantry, take these off, so be it. But this just seems to make the most sense at this point in time. So that's what we're going to do. So basically what I will be doing is pulling what few fasteners I have in place, getting them out. We're going to no doubt have some issues where I can't come in. Typical scenario, I'd have a torque wrench sitting on this bolt. We torque it to spec, everything's fine. We have our first problem right there, Case in point, I would cinch everything down starting at the corners, but then when you torque, typically with header gaskets, you want to do the middle 2 points first. And I mean, there's no access to that. You're not going to get a deep socket in, you're not going to get a shallow socket in, you're not going to have a ratchet slim enough to clear any of this stuff. So how do you torque? Well, there's really cool things that cost a lot of money that I don't own. And I also realize this is like the perfect time for a 3/8 drive torque wrench, which I also don't have. My early torque wrench, 1/2-inch Craftsman, that thing seized up years ago. Bought a cheap Summit one, which has been fine. It's 1/2-inch drive. The nicest torque wrench I have is the Gador. It bottoms out at 30 foot-pounds, just like, I take that back, my Summit one drops down to 20. The Gador drops to 30, and then in terms of inch pounds, I've got the Capri, but it's 1/4-inch drive, which it would work, but we'd have to run an adapter. It turns into a mess. Realistically, the best thing to do is like this bolt can be properly torqued. So then we would come in, whatever we're using that can access everything else, we would get a feel for what 20 is like, and then we just attempt to replicate that elsewhere. That's honestly about as good as it's going to get. That's one of the reasons we brought A, the Crowfoot wrenches in from Tekton, and B, the 1/2-inch 3060 angle wrenches. So this is just a scenario. Again, I'd love to have every bolt like this, but we can't. So, that's the perk. Your headers, more difficult to install, they perform better than your exhaust manifolds, right? You got to make that decision yourself. So we opted for performance, and what I'm going to do is I've gathered up some of the tools. We come over here, I've got the Remflex Gaskets. Again, it's been a while since we've looked at these. There is your part number. I'll try to remember to link these. Again, I think these were in the Gibson headers, video when we kind of revealed those, so I won't spend a ton of time here. They suggest a torque to 20. Gibson suggests 30 to 35. I can't recall what the factory suggested. I'm going to look that up, and then we're probably going to just split the middle. So 20 is probably where I'll start, just because I'm going to go at the gasket and the lower number, and obviously it's easier to come in and torque them back down. So we shall see there. Coming in over here to the cart, I've got a using the Hazette here because again it's the 1/2-inch that I've got an offset, I've got the angle, I've got the Crowfoot. We're just going to see what works. We might bust out some regular wrenches on time. We're just going to go to town, see what we can make happen. So I'm going to pull these headers and you will see the gaskets get seated. Alright, so here we are. Found the specs in the service manual that are suggesting 25 foot-pounds. Gasket says 20, Gibson says 30 to 35, so I'm thinking we go with the factory at 25 for now. Again, that's sadly too small for the door. Now with our Remflex gaskets, there's something important to note. This side is smooth, right? My finger just slides across it like butter. This other side is not as smooth. However, it's exactly the same sealing capabilities. This isn't like one side has to face in. Typically, I would think, okay, let's have the texture side, you know, face the head, right? Well, I'm kind of thinking this time I would prefer to have maybe the smooth side face the head and put the textured side up against the header. Well, I think that's what we're going to roll with. So checking the fitment awkwardly from behind a tripod. It's I'm going to flip her around. Looks like it'll work. Again, I'm right up against the camera. Can't even see in it to know if you see anything, but looks like we are golden on that front. So always a little tricky getting everything started. We'll get it taken care of though. In terms of silicone, no. That's what machine shops are for. You get machined flat surfaces. You don't need that. Hopefully Gibson holds up their end of the deal because the heads look good. What I do like to do, I don't run Loctite or anything, even though they're, you know, header bolts or exhaust manifold stuff. What I do run, I always run marine grade Anti-Sieze, just because, again, if I go to install this, even if it's just, you know, in a day or two when we drop the motor in and I have to pull the headers off, it's peace of mind. If it's on down the line, maybe, I don't know, in 6 months, you know, the headers have an issue, or we get like a screaming good deal on some long tubes, or we decide to switch to long tubes, at whatever point in time that I have to take these out, it will be something that I'm proud that I did, because it should make my life easier. And if it doesn't, it's peace of mind and it's in my head making me think that I did. So I'm content with that, but I'm going to shut up again. I wish I could film this a little bit better, but obviously with a tripod and a gasket and a header and a bolt and Anti-Sieze, you know, you already wind up looking like the Tin Man. So gonna get it lined out, and then we'll see how we go about with our inabilities to torque things to spec, so stay tuned for that. Alright, I forgot to mention, if you can't hear me, my apologies, it's probably the wind. I've got the door cracked, didn't want to risk the screen, it's that windy. But I just edited a video where it was like dumping rain and hail, and you could hear me okay, but this is sort of a dorky little step here. It's difficult to get the brush to work well in these scenarios. And what I like to do, keep in mind, you're using a steel shaft on a screwdriver, and you've got aluminum heads, one stronger than the other, so be gentle, be delicate, be light, you know. But what I'm going to try to do, typically I just slather the crud all over the bolt, and in most cases that's fine. In the event where I'm having to then grab the bolt awkwardly and trying to get it to line out, not so much. So what I'll do here is slide you over for these final two. And again, it's little things like this. Where do I want the Anti-Sieze? I want it on the threads. So as long as you kind of get it seated here at the start, you know, the bolt will just naturally run that in. And again, like I said, if we spring for long tubes here in a couple of months, if it's 20 years later, you know, and the 408 has run its course and we've got to rebuild, pull it out, freshen it, whatever, when I go to take these headers off, it's just peace of mind. So that's what I'm running with. And again, if you're curious about the screwdriver, it's just a code blue channel lock. They're actually pretty nice, I'm not gonna lie, but again, we are somewhat spoiled with drivers. So something like this, it would typically kind of be like, ooh, you know, like when I was in college, if I would have had these, I'd be like, man, these are awesome. Magnetic, chisel drivers, everything you could want, right? But they do their job, they serve their purposes, and it keeps me from having to like tear up something nicer. So the main thing there, this also might help the gasket stick a little where we were a little sloppy. But again, each hole has some, that way I don't have to put it on the bolt, because again, holding a gasket, the header, and a bolt, it's just a bad situation. So we're gonna go to town here. Again, if you have children or a unwitting wife, girlfriend, whatever, this is a great time to get them involved here, you know. So even if it's you that gets dirty and they do the clean stuff, it just keeps it off the header, saves cleanup time, all that good stuff. So, and of course, you spend quality time with your family. But I'm solo, so, you know, hey, it's what it is. But I'll get this gasket on, get the tubes on, and we'll, like I said, go down to try to torque everything. Man, of all the times you wish to record something, that was just the smoothest thing ever. Didn't drop it, didn't lose a bolt, didn't have the gasket fall down. It was just pure success across the board. Note though, if I bring you up here, and this is what's different than this was all this other time that you've seen these beautiful things on here. See that extra little piece of material? That is our Remflex gasket. That was not there before because, again, mock-up. So Outer two bolts beautifully align with the zero issues. That's what we use to get this in place. I'm going to thread the others in. I could have sworn that I had bought some stainless flats, and I don't know where they are. And I don't think the alloy bolts kit came with exhaust manifold stuff or header bolts or anything. So I'm using the crush washers from Gibson. Now, to Gibson's credit, I do want to point out, like, their bolts don't suck. They are black though, and they do have kind of the crown nut, you sort of a built-in washer, whatever you want to call it. I do like that style, but at the same time, I want to run stainless. I wish the crush was stainless, but we'll see. If it starts to streak, we'll just take everything apart and put it back in. And the main thing, if we have to do this with a wrench, which I'm thinking a lot of these will need a wrench to kind of be torqued, right? we'll be able to easily swap that stuff out. So without further ado, I'm going to get the rest of these. You're scoring at home, 6 bolts per side. You know, you got 2 exhaust ports in the middle, no divided section. So 2 bolts, 2 bolts, 2 bolts, 1 primary, and 2 primaries in the center section. So 6 bolts. I'm going to get those all started. Might actually torque this side and kind of see what works, what doesn't, and then kind of just recap it for you. Alright, so the outer 2 bolts are torqued properly to 20 foot-pounds. The inside 4, maybe. It's kind of a crapshoot, but the hero of the hour is right there. It is our Tekton 3060. That thing basically paid for itself with this job, so that would have been significantly more cumbersome with the standard wrench. Probably would have needed a stubby. Maybe could get by a standard, but I think a stubby would have been better than standard. But I've just basically tried to do it by feel, by hand, and we'll see if it leaks or not. So that's kind of why you want good machine surfaces and why you want to have good gaskets, because that's a pain in the butt and you don't want to have to redo it. So with that said, we're going to hop around to the other side and see how it goes. I should point out we had one other honorable mention here. This is nothing that I could really get in with a torque wrench like I had sort of hoped, but this right here, Tekton Crowfoot, plus the Stahlwille flex head. That's right. Basically what this allows me to do is when you put the Tekton wrench on, say, this outboard that's torqued to 20, and you realize, like, hey, you know, this is going to take significant effort for me to turn the bolt anymore. If you're able to come in and you put this on there and you get a feel for it, then you can sort of fish this around to a position where it will hit the landings on the bolt, and then you can say, okay, hey, this needs to be a little tighter. Let's go ahead and keep torquing it, and then if you get to a point where you can't use this, you use your 3060 and you just kind of rinse and repeat. But I might get cocky and try to film the other side header going on because we did so good this time around. But got to prep the bolts, get the crush washers on, gunk up the ports with Anti-Sieze, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so against my better judgment, we're going to go for this, and it went super smooth last time. You'll just have to take my word for it. And this time around, though, who knows what's going to happen. Probably won't go as smooth because, again, I am filming it. So, again, anytime you have help, spare set of hands, whatever, it comes in quite handy. So, what I'm going to do, I've got my bolts captive here. We're going to nestle this in place, line that up, and I don't know how, but I think we've done it again. So I like to get these down all the way so this doesn't flop. Hopefully you're not just looking at my wrist or something stupid, but that was a one-man show right there, and doesn't get much better than that. Other side I think was a little bit smoother, truth be told, but hey, it is what it is. What we're going to do now is get the rest of the 4 bolts in. I think here on the driver's side, from this angle you would never know, this looks terrible, but if I move you around, I think we have a little better access on this side, so that's going to be nice. But once more, combination of the SK ratcheting wrench. I've got a box in, which I haven't used. It was mainly just for leverage if I needed it. But we will torque down to 20 foot-pounds these 2 outboard bolts. We'll use that as our gauge, and then we'll use a combination of the Tekton 3060 and the Tekton Crowfoot on the Stahlwille flex head. Should get everything torqued down, and hopefully we don't have to take them off, so let's see. Alright, so that is it. This side is torqued down too. It was a little easier to access, but again, kind of finish it off with a combination of the Tekton 3060 and the Stahlwille flex head with the Tekton Crowfoot. So The big thing now, number one, will it leak? We won't know that until we have it in the truck running. Number two, and more importantly and pressing at this point in time, will it fit? And I don't know that either. So I'm optimistic we've done the right thing here. And again, it would really suck to have put the engine in and then struggled with the headers with it in the engine bay if it would go in like this. So it's one of those things we're not going to know until we try. So keep your fingers crossed that when we throw this thing on the gantry, drop her down, we won't have any issues with clearance from the headers. Looking around, again, there's our heroes of the hour right there, the Stahlwille, the Tekton wedged in there. But looking around, you know, like the fitment here, you've got the back of the block there, our bell housing, you know, we've got the dowel here, so it does jut out, you know, like considerably past the head, but it seems to have the clearance we would need. Sort of the same thing on that other side as I collapse the tripod. But yeah, these things are installed for better or for worse. That will now allow me to actually come in and, you know, wrap up the plug wire by getting the R&M loom on. And yeah, that's about it. So pretty simple and straightforward install, especially with the truck, you know, not having the engine in it. So that's a perk. But yeah, that's what we did. It took a little time, but it should be worthwhile. Again, stainless bolts, the Remflex Gaskets, marine grade Anti-Sieze. It's kind of my typical run-of-the-mill stuff, so we'll see how it goes down. But with that said, that wraps up this installment of the Ram Revival. I do hope you enjoyed. Maybe you learned a little something. What did you do for your header install? If you ran these Gibson Shorties, did you do it in the truck? Was the motor out of the truck? If you did it out of the truck, will it drop down? By the time I see this, and if any of you have insights, it will be worthless to me because I will have probably already figured it out the hard way. But yeah, feel free to share your experiences, what you found works best. That way anyone that comes across this video will benefit not only from what I've done here, but from your first-hand experiences. So feel free to share there. Again, if you're doing this, especially, you know, like if you're a Mopar person, you know, you're typically going to have half-inch wrench necessary to tighten down the bolts for your exhaust. Get the Tekton half-inch or whatever size it may be, the 30-60. If you buy those singularly, if that's the only thing you'll ever use it for, well worth the money. I don't think you're going to spend more than like 15 bucks. The Crowfoot came in really handy. Again, it's not, you know, necessarily because we got to torque it like I would have liked to, but just in terms of running this down, the few times I could like make a pass and then just reset the Crowfoot, kind of totally not what they're intended for, but it worked really well there. Again, there's no ratcheting open-end wrenches, and that's kind of the closest thing to it. So just in terms of running these in, saving me time, it was worthwhile. So with that said, I'm going to wrap it up here. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. Again, every chance I get, I'm going to let you look at that Hughes Big Gulp up top because it'll soon be covered. But next time you see this thing, we will probably have the plug wires on as well, so stay tuned for that. But the website, once more, Lone Star Mopars, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you prefer, whatever you're on. You can find us on all three at Lone Star Mopars. If you enjoyed the video, I encourage you to subscribe, leave a like, let me know your thoughts on everything. If you subscribe, you ring the bell, and you dump your truck across the creek, go through the mud, circle back, and do it in reverse, YouTube just might notify you of new content. Otherwise, Saturdays we typically have tool content, Wednesdays typically something automotive or something related to tools and cars, something along those lines. Not always the case, but usually is. Again, I'll quit rambling. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you back here for more thrilling action from the Ram Revival.